A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mangu Shampagi. And tonight we'll be discussing, of course, what is in the news. We haven't discussed a lot of the peace process in South Sudan, but also discussing the broader question of peace building in a volatile region, the case study of South Sudan and the Ugandan region broadly. We'll also be discussing a bit of the story that has gotten all Ugandans talking. The revival of Uganda Airlines. The purchase of the Uganda government placed firm orders, as they call them, firm orders with the manufacturers of Bombardier, the Canadian firm that manufactures Bombardier aircraft, and also for planes, and also a firm order with Airbus, the French company that produces the Airbus. And I've seen a lot of debate about the East African story, which says Uganda Airlines to fly the unwanted Airbus 330neo 800 series. I remember saying, look at these haters. The bigger debate is, look at these haters. What are they talking about that Uganda wants to fly again? And these haters, someone was actually quite hard. He said, foreign interests. and talked about that Rwanda Air and Kenya Airways do not want the revival of Uganda Airlines, and therefore they're feeding a newspaper like the East African to write negative about Uganda Airlines. But I have in studio with me Dr. Moses Kisa. Dr. Moses Kisa teaches political science at the University, North Carolina State University.
You got it. You
got
got
I
it
got
right.
it.
You got it right this time, Charles. Thank you once again for inviting me. It's always nice being back on the Fourth Estate. And good evening to all the viewers out there tonight.
I also have with me in the studio Kambula Milton. Kambula Milton is a Peace Service Ambassador, so he talks a lot about peace, and chapter president Global Peace Foundation. So you will help us understand building peace in a volatile region.
Oh yes.
And particularly whether the peace efforts in South Sudan will lead to anything, and elsewhere when we're also trying to build peace within the region. Very nice to have you, Milton.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for hosting us with my brother. You're welcome back to Uganda.
Thanks.
The Pearl of Africa.
Yep.
Our viewers, we are delighted to actually be on air to share with you the perspective of an innovative values-based approach to peace building that is for lasting peace in the region. Thank you.
Whenever somebody talks about the grandiose idea of lasting peace.
Yes, 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 yes.
In a highly volatile region like we have here. But we'll discuss that. So let me start with you on the question of the controversy surrounding Uganda Airlines and its revival. There was the signing. My understanding is that the gentleman Bagenda, who signed on behalf of Uganda, is a very competent pilot, and he's been in the business for many years. We did run a story at the East African before, after we noticed that no provision had been made in the budget for the purchase of the aircraft, even when government had been promising.
Right.
And then, all of a sudden, we find actually at the Funbro airfare, Uganda inking these deals. 6 planes is by no means a small order.
Right. That's upwards of $700 million, I think.
Yeah? Yes, upwards of over $700 million.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
The $700 million is actually going for
Only
the
the
Embraer. The
Bombardiers.
The Bombardiers.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The debate has shifted towards profitability, the necessity, but this is a debate we've been having for a long time, and you'd imagine that by now it would have been closed.
Right.
Did it come to you as a surprise? And people are looking to the United States where you live, asking, airlines are not making money. They look into the region and say, Kenya Airways is struggling to make money.
So
Rwanda
is Rwanda Air, yes.
Rwanda Air is heavily subsidized
It is by the state.
by the state.
Right.
South African Airways is struggling. But
even Ethiopian Airlines, which is Africa's best airline so far, it's also heavily indebted.
Heavily indebted, but it's been operating at least
correct. It
above.
Is,
it's in the black.
It is the most efficiently run airline on the African continent, very professionally run, but still, it's so many fleet of aircrafts have come at quite a huge debt. Ethiopian Airlines has a very big debt. It's been making profit, but it is also indebted. Yeah. No, Charles, you see, there is the debate about the prudence, strategic prudence of having a national carrier. I think under ideal circumstances, you need a national carrier, especially when you are a landlocked country like Uganda is. Two, when you are a country that aspires to be a tourist destination, you need air transport to be available and inexpensive and convenient for people who are coming into the country. But you see, running an airline is a very complex and highly competitive business. And so in the region, as you rightly mentioned, there is actually saturation. There is market saturation. You have so many private airlines as well as national carriers. Don't forget that Nigeria too is actually
also made an order.
The Nigeria national carrier is actually beginning business in December.
Yes.
For them, they have ordered the planes and they have kind of finished the groundwork, and they are soon off to go. So there is that. Airlines are very complex and very competitive to run. But for us, actually, there is even a much bigger worry for many Ugandans. The Monitor actually today had a very interesting editorial in which they were saying, we started from the sky, okay? In other words, we have started by buying the planes when we haven't done the groundwork, when we haven't done the proper planning, the proper due diligence. Somebody was even asking, how did the person who signed on behalf of Uganda Airlines actually get that job? Nobody knows. So there is the issue of professionalism. There is the issue of having a merit system. Ethiopian Airlines has been very successfully run because it is very professionally managed. It is a state airline, but through successive governments in Ethiopia, starting with the monarchy, the imperial government, and then onto the military junta regime of Mengistu Haile Mariam and the current EPRDF-run government, the governments have not interfered with the running of the airline, even if it is a public state-owned airline. And I think that is critical. Now, shall we be able to do that here in Uganda? I mean, the NRM government has done so many bad things. I think having a national carrier is not entirely one of those very bad decisions to make, in principle, because I think there is a strategic value that comes with having a national carrier. I keep flying out of Entebbe.
Doctor, someone will ask you and say, it's not like we never had a national carrier.
Correct. Yeah, so the question
we
is,
did have it once.
We had. So how did it
collapsed
die?
15 years ago. Yes.
Exactly. Why? So have we taken stock of what befell Uganda Airlines leading to its collapse? Have we taken the lessons? Is it a viable idea to go back and revive the airline? I don't think that those questions have been answered, and I think many Ugandans are right to express their misgivings and anxiety about whether this is going to be another phantom project that will end in disaster, that will end in sacking national public purse, when in fact some private individuals are profiteering from it, and the public is not benefiting. So there are serious questions, and I think these questions needed to have been addressed before you even go to sign an MOU with Airbus and then you purchase.
But this is not a journey that started yesterday.
It's been around for a while.
The promise to revive the national airline started some time back, and I want to bring in Milton here. Milton, you are putting together, this is one of the issues that have been advanced in support of revival of the national carrier. We can discuss what is causing the troubles of Kenya Airways. It's not that the route is not profitable. No, that running Kenya Airways is not profitable per se. It is that it's being run under exactly the same conditions that many Ugandans are worried the reintroduction of Uganda Airlines will suffer. Corruption, cutting of deals and stuff like that. But Milton, you are bringing into the country next week, I think.
Yes.
You say you're inviting 1,000 delegates to attend for Uganda to host the Global Peace Conference. I had the Minister for the Minister for Public Service make the announcement on Wednesday about this conference going to happen. when you're discussing the revival of the national airline, and you see
Yeah.
the debate that
Yeah.
Ugandans are engaged in at the moment, and they're saying, okay, we've been doing all these bookings for so many people, we're receiving all these orders for so many people.
Yeah.
Isn't it just enough that people can make their way into Kampala, whether they fly Uganda Airlines or any other airline?
Yeah, thank you. What I want to share with the viewers is that we are losing a lot of millions of dollars to other countries. Just as economies are growing, our capacity to be able to provide certain facilities, first for our local customer base, because analysts are saying Uganda can probably make $241 million per year out of this business. It's a business. And why we sold and we terminated the Uganda airline was not that it was not a bad idea, but it was becoming a liability to Uganda, running it
To the taxpayer.
to the taxpayer. But now, learning from our regional governments and other friends of ours, we realize that more Ugandans are leaving Uganda. They are traveling, going out, coming back. So a lot of money is being lost. So the analysts, the economists are saying, hey, look at the balance sheet. If we have a national carrier system, we could actually tap and even sustain this carrier. It's a good idea. For example, we are organizing the Global Peace Leadership Conference. 1,000 people, just to one conference. Each of those individuals probably has paid, like from the United States, has paid $1,500
Or even more.
or even more. Look at that, just get a calculator. Now, times the many conferences in Kampala, you will have maintained the system. But the issue my brother is talking about, the professionalism, the leadership, providing the right leadership to the whole sector is very necessary. But the idea is very perfect. But also supporting our local air flight system, because right now we would start actually with a flight, small flight from here to Soroti, to Kasese, to Bundi. We make Ugandans get used to this kind of flying thing domestically, so that the money is already in Uganda. Ugandans are now having some money now. 100,000 from here to Kabale, people are ready to pay it, even yourself, my brother, everyone. Because time, Ugandans no longer want to waste time. You can imagine from here to Nairobi, it takes probably 45 minutes. But you can imagine from Kampala to Entebbe with the jam, you spend 2 hours. Business people don't want to spend more end of this time. So the idea is good. I don't mind about the other area because there is no historical kind of analysis of that. These planes have crashed in the air. The Canadian model, it is comfortable, it is friendly, it is environmentally friendly, it runs faster, it is comfortable, it provides a customer care orientation, just like other flights. So the issue of a customer cutting a consignment, not to take it home, does not mean Uganda should not purchase.
Okay.
But
The issue-
Let me just read out something.
Yes.
This is a forward of the feasibility study conducted by the National Planning Authority for the revival of Uganda Airlines, written by Dr. Kisamba Mugero, who is the chairperson of the National Planning Authority. I'll pick a few more things from from the feasibility study. And it says, this feasibility study was undertaken following a directive from the Presidential Economic Council to the National Planning Authority to prepare a paper on the revival of Uganda National Carrier, The authority undertook this comprehensive investment appraisal for the national carrier in close partnership with key stakeholders, including the Ministry of Works and Transport, Civil Aviation Authority, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Uganda Development Corporation, Uganda Air Cargo, Ministry of Defense, State House, among others. And in particular, the feasibility study was informed by preliminary studies by Civil Aviation Authority, which was carried out by Ernst & Young and the Uganda Development Corporation. And it says, this feasibility study undertook a detailed analysis and review of the causes of success and failure of airlines globally, with particular focus on Africa and the collapse of the country's previous national carrier, Uganda, Uganda's existing market, fundamentals, appropriate aircraft technology, suitable airline management and operational framework, and the financial and economic benefits of the various investment options for the national carrier, including risk management. The study was based on internationally recommended methodologies that use cost-benefit analysis techniques as the basis for decision-making on the various investment options for the national carrier. Overall, the report recommends that investment in the national carrier should be considered as an infrastructure for enhancing the country's global connectivity and competitiveness beyond direct financial benefits.
Yes.
Well, that's all fair enough, Charles, and somebody can come up with all that nice sounding analysis. But see, at the end of the day, the dynamics of the aviation market are not that simple and straightforward. Globally, so many airlines have been struggling, as you rightly said at the beginning. Even in the US, many airlines have been facing rough waters in the market. On the African continent, definitely many airlines have been struggling, and so bringing up Uganda Airlines has to be based on some real cautious process, not just us latching into the aviation market where we haven't been in a long time. We have lost ground already. But I wanted to say that one other thing, I guess, that is driving all this is the whole speculation about our oil economy. Okay, and the fact that we hope that by 2020 or around 2021 oil drilling is going to begin, and so there will be oil revenue, there will be activity around the oil economy, and so you need a national carrier to facilitate part of that economic activity going on, which is fine. The problem, though, as you and I were speaking before we came on air, you have that Airbus 330-800, which nobody else has purchased so far.
I think that's why the East African is being roasted.
Uganda, all other airlines around the world have snubbed and shunned that particular Airbus. So the question is, why is Uganda the only country that is buying that Airbus 330?
Why shouldn't Uganda be the country that, or Uganda Airlines for this matter,
that experiments with what everybody else has rejected?
Not just experimenting.
Because it's experimenting. No. This is a new aircraft.
Yes.
Nobody else has flown it. Actually, those who have attempted to buy it have cancelled their orders. Now Uganda is throwing itself into the rough waters of an aircraft.
I don't know where the skepticism is coming from, because if this Airbus is successful, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, Uganda will be the country that started, that pioneered.
Exactly.
Well, this.
So you're saying it might be a risk worth taking?
Airbus
330-800.
Yes.
You see, border borders, everyone knows border borders, my friends. They are manufactured from India. Uganda is the first country to have actually tapped a border to become another kind of an independent sector, that the global community is actually learning a lot from Uganda. Now, we need that's another conversation. Especially the
I thought
digital.
India itself started.
Yes, they manufactured, but with
their rickshaws and and Nigeria with your Okadas.
Yes, but the example I'm bringing, the young man recently digitalized the border business, the safe border. Look at our chapatis, this commando. If you go to Google, there is a word now they are trying to say, it should be another English word. Uganda again is coming on board. It doesn't make, it makes sense, Uganda to become, of course we are the PAL. What defines us as the PAL is one of the issues that I would like to present to my brothers out there. This bus has no history of collapse. It has never killed people. It has very sufficient environmental analysis.
Mr. Kambala, in the hard economics of airline business, comparisons with Rolex, Commando, and Border may not mark up.
You know, it is business.
Joachim Buembo is watching us and says, aviation is one industry where even 99% efficiency is not enough. Because if 1 out of every 100 planes take off crashes, the industry wouldn't exist. So you have zero room, both from an economic perspective,
for error.
From an economic perspective, and also from a management perspective, to speculate, to experiment, you must be 100% sure.
Yes.
What you're doing.
K2 has two types of planes, but it bought them from Britain. You understand it took them, that company, 11 years even to buy one plane. Business is business. There is always the first customer. But even to get that first customer definitely takes some time. What worries me more is the issue of management
there has to be an
of the
explanation
sector.
why Uganda is being the first country to buy.
Yes, that explanation maybe.
Somebody should give an
Yes,
explanation. The public needs to know why. What is the rationale
But
behind?
the assessment was done.
We're very debating public, and I don't know how that works with efficiency, with all due respect, Doctor. I want to believe that the technocrats have thought through what they're doing.
Yes.
Probably.
The story that Michael wrote for the East African is a story based on fact. I have the list here. I'll just put it. I'll just pull it up and share with you guys and our viewers before we can before we move on. Nteja Sim, I've received your message. I'll read it in a moment. I wonder why Doctor is laughing.
No,
because I haven't.
Nteja Sim is you always have to expect him. No, he's your man who watches this show religiously and makes sure to text you and contribute, which is a good thing. He's
okay. The 800 series Neo. Initial date of order and firm orders that have been placed for it, and in comparison with the 900 series. The United States, in 19th November 2014, United States, Delta Airlines did not order. They ordered 25-900 Neo. Yes. The United States, again, CIT Group also ordered for 15-900 Neo. The only country out of how many? Let me see. United States, Malaysia, Ireland, United States. Malaysia was Asia Air, Air Asia X. Ireland, Avalon, United States Air Lease Corporation, Portugal, TAP Air Portugal, Indonesia, Garuda Indonesia, Israel, through Akia, Israeli Airlines, France, Air Kalin.
In all, there are so
Iran.
many 900s out there. I think
all these airlines, a total of 267.
Right.
A330 900 Neo,
but zero
were
800s.
Ordered. No.
For the 800s,
330,
there is none.
330, A330 800 Neo. The order was made by Uganda on 18th July 2018 for 2 aircraft. I don't find a
previously, 2 or 3 other airlines had ordered for that 800, 330 800, and then cancelled the order.
But should that be where the debate should be?
Well, I mean, it should be something that we have to talk about because, you know, does it raise a red flag? If other players in the aviation market have shunned that particular aircraft, why are you, a new airline, going for it? Okay, isn't it a risk for you to be taking that gamble? Maybe not.
I'm just wondering.
But I think the public deserves an explanation. I think that's
just
the point
wondering what explanation anybody owes to the Ugandan public for that decision.
The explanation is
because the debating public are not technocrats.
You see,
they're not, but they're stakeholders.
Yes. To what end would be my question.
But you see, there is a committee which you read. The committee, I don't think it's the public. These are experts,
but the committee represents the public.
You are right.
It's not doing
you are right.
How much can you achieve by making decisions based on public sentiment?
No.
Especially
Charles, I think you're getting me wrong. What I'm saying is that if this is a national airline, a national carrier, where taxpayer money is going to be sunk, there has to be an explanation on the decisions that the decision makers are making. Okay? If you go buy an aircraft that other airlines have shunned, right? You should tell Ugandans that we are buying it probably because this aircraft is cost effective, is a good deal, and so on and so forth. That is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the decisions should be made on the basis of public whims and sentiments, but that the public, who are the key stakeholders, deserve to know.
You see, a comprehensive report on the purchase. There was an assessment, a professional assessment. People went even to the factories. The whole UPDF, the engineers, the around 20 people, the institutions.
But we have been here before.
You're right,
With
the junk helicopters,
and
but
short-sized uniforms and that kind of stuff.
But for this, I do not think a reputable major aircraft manufacturer like Airbus would lend its years of experience and years of business to something they think won't work.
Yeah, you're right. But
let me just read this message with all due respect, Milton. This is a message from Nteja Sima. I promised I would read it, so let me take it.
Your man Nteja.
If this was not budgeted for, how are we going to purchase these aeroplanes? Secondly, if it is true that powers like South Africa Airways are making losses, won't Uganda even lose the planes? Lastly, have we addressed all the causes that led to the collapse of our former Uganda Airlines? Yeah. My brother Tamale Mirundi says that if you are a man putting on a torn coat, torn trouser, torn shirt, don't expect him, don't expect him to be putting on an untorn underwear. Nteje Asimu. Nteje, I've never known Nteje to be so skeptical about this country, about this country. Joseph Nwabine is watching us, I believe, from Kabola Liantona, and says it's important that government has done a SWOT and cost-benefit analysis. But I think the major problem with Uganda's state-owned enterprises has always been managerial rather than anything else. The efficacy of any business largely hinges on management. Otherwise, we need the airlines yesterday.
Correct.
Andrew Irumba is also watching us and says, Charles, the argument from a whole dawn as to why Uganda is the first customer to plane from the company is really irrelevant. So, should Uganda always be a follower of some sort while doing due diligence on what suits the country? Then, when are we going to free ourselves from mental captivity of our former colonial masters? I believe you wanted to write.
Yeah, Irumba, thank you. And you know, he's right. Because we were flying from here to West Africa, for example, Professor,
where he was last month.
Exactly. You find these two huge. Going to the economic theories and application, demand and supply, just the simple formula.
Charles, by the way, you see, Milton, for me, as somebody, as a regular traveler from Uganda, I would be very happy to have a national carrier. Okay, you know, I was in West Africa last month. Going to West Africa from Entebbe takes you more than 10 hours. It's longer than going to Europe, because from Entebbe I have to go to Addis Ababa, and I'll have a layover of 4 or 5 hours. And then from Addis Ababa, then do the long trip to cross the heart of Africa, to West Africa, which is like 6 or 6.5 hours of flying. In total, you are doing upwards of 10 hours for a journey which, if it had been in Entebbe direct to West Africa, it would be like 3 hours.
Which maybe lends
so in principle, I would be very excited. I would be very happy for the Uganda Airlines to be revived.
And Nigeria also coming.
I am saying picture. There are questions that have to be answered.
Okay,
right.
Daniel,
and they haven't been answered.
Daniel is watching us and gives that explanation. Says the only reason other aircraft have not been ordering the A330-800 is that the 900 series gives you 50 more passengers than
so it's bigger.
The 800. It's bigger. Even when the 330-800 was built with an engine with better fuel efficiency.
Exactly.
So the economies, I think, are worked out in the number of passengers you're able to. You're able, and you might find that we're spending a lot of our time debating things that actually may not impact. Yes. Let me take people are interested in this debate. Bernard Impeirwe is watching us from Lubaga and says, "But Charles, you people are not telling Ugandans the problems with that type of airline. Telling us that some countries cancelled the order is not enough. What is the problem?
We don't know.
Are the problems expensive to maintain, or in terms of repairs?
They are not.
Or they are fuel guzzlers?
No,
they're actually not fuel guzzlers.
They are not.
That's the advantage.
Exactly.
Dr. Chris Bariomunse Minister is watching us and says, one of the reasons why Uganda is buying the 800 series of the Airbus is because it can fly Entebbe to Guangzhou, China.
Exactly.
Whereas the 900 series can't make that route non-stop. Most of our people do business in China. The whole issue has been analyzed by aviation experts.
Exactly.
Charles, if that is the case, what I'm saying is that the people who are managing this issue, they need to give an explanation to the public, so people know what's going on. Otherwise, you know, there is a lot of speculation.
Mike Segawa is watching us and says, please ask Dr. Kisa to explain further his statement that Ethiopia Airlines makes profits, yet it's in serious debt. What sort of balance sheet is that?
Oh, no. I did not say it is in serious debt. I said it is indebted because you see, they have been accumulating a big fleet of aircrafts, but they have not been making losses. You see, you can have a debt when you are servicing the debt while at the same time making profit. It doesn't. The two are not at odds. You can have a big loan somewhere, but on the business side of your
operations,
your operations, you're not making losses.
But
so they haven't been making losses, but they have a lot of debt.
Ethiopia Airlines has been posting a profit, has been operating above board. I think consistently 7% for a long period of time, and 10% over the last few years, or something like that.
Part of the reason, by the way, why they are in big debt is because I think they're one of the airlines I have known that have so many good aircrafts, and many of them new. Do you know that right now they have more than 10 Boeing Dreamliners?
Yes.
And you know, the Boeing 787 airline, which is the latest Boeing, it's a very expensive aircraft. And Ethiopian Airlines has, I think, like more than 10 of them.
Yes.
So they have kept a very good fleet.
They have a fleet of about 100 aircraft.
Right.
Rama Omonya is watching us and says, I am no expert on aviation matters. However, I don't think Airbus can sell Uganda a bad plane. That would be a bad marketing deal for them. Let's believe in the planes bought. They might just turn out to be very good.
Actually, my brothers, we have something that we are selling beyond the plane. I have liked this idea. We have been losing our money to the tourism sector to our other countries in the region, particularly because of the lack of our capacity to provide the quickest means to reach into this country.
Okay.
So we are not just buying a plane. We are buying some bigger objective than the plane.
Well, honestly, my view on this debate, my personal opinion on this debate, is that the debate should be on what it would take to run a revived Uganda Airlines profitably.
Correct.
The type of aircraft...
It would take professionalism
yes.
and competence, not politics.
We move from here, for many Ugandans, whether they are flying for the 100th time or the first time, the biggest concern is they're getting on a plane and they're getting to their destination. Right. The quicker they get there, the more comfortable they are, is most important. Right. Levi Zache, I agree with you 100%. Levi is watching us and says, I thought you'd at least have an aviation expert on the panel, an official from Uganda Airlines. What I think Ugandans need to know are the chances of success of the airline business. From the management, the routes, other revenue sources, since the airline won't have ground handling and no cargo business too. Levi, I agree with you entirely.
By the way, it should. If the national carrier doesn't get back ground handling, then it's going to be a tall order for it to be profitable. I think the most important aspect of a national carrier is actually ground handling. If it remains with NHAS, then Air Uganda is going to be in trouble.
Okay. So, Levi, I agree with you 100%. We should have had an aviation expert. We will, because this story is just beginning. We just at the beginning of this discussion. We will be able in subsequent discussions to have more detailed, more engaging debates about this as details become clearer.
But you answered him by reading to him the report from the experts, which built the basis of this conversation.
Gentlemen, I want us to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be talking peace building and the situation in South Sudan. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this edition of the Fourth Estate. I see a lot of interest on the Uganda Airlines revival.
Important
a journey that this country has been on for some years now, but which, to a considerable surprise of many, came to fruition with that announcement on Thursday that firm orders had been signed with 2 reputable aircraft manufacturers, particularly Airbus, which is a French company, and Bombardier.
It's actually, you know, Airbus and Boeing are like the 2 big boys in the aviation market in terms of supplying aircraft. Those are the 2 big players.
Yes, and Bombardier and Boeing.
Boeing and
Airbus, yes. And Bombardier has been breaking through the competition.
Mostly for the smaller aircraft.
Yes, and people will be looking, of course, to China, which is building its aircraft manufacturing industry moving forward. Gentlemen, we're moving the discussion to South Sudan and peace building in a volatile region. But I want to take these messages from our viewers who sent them on the first quarter of the debate. Anthony is watching us from the US and says, just a quick question. In this whole debate about the airline, has there been a discussion on developing the domestic aviation sector? We need it too. There are many Ugandan business people that would be willing to fly from Kampala to Gulu or say Kabale for business. Then you have tourists as well. Anthony, I'll give you a quick answer. I need to get Captain Dan Rubombora into the studio here, the gentleman of Uganda Air, to tell his experience. Because I think if you talk about business success or sustainability of business, he struggled to keep Uganda Air in flying,
especially domestic flights.
Yes, domestic flights, and many have tried in this market and haven't had the staying power.
Frankly, the domestic market is a little bit problematic. Ours is still a fairly small economy, but you know, I think there can be potential for.
Moses Engado is watching us and says, nice conversation on the revival of Uganda Airlines. I believe needs another 4th estate dedicated to the Uganda Airlines revival.
Correct.
Having the Uganda Airlines management team and aviation experts as well. Moses, I can't agree more with you. I agree with you 100%. And we will.
Especially this point where some of these institutions are led by community workers to manage air flight companies. We need professionals, engineers, experts in emergency response. So the core business of this is leadership centered on technical competencies.
Okay. We will bring in financial analysts, people who understand business, and bring in aviation experts to discuss Uganda Airlines. Hopefully, we can do that next Sunday.
This is not going away anytime soon.
No, it's not. And we promised that we'd discuss this South Sudan whole peace efforts in South Sudan before. We hadn't been able to. But you've helped us because you're bringing in people to discuss, to do a global conference on peace.
Yes.
My major question to you, I want again start with Kiss and then come to you, Milton. You have an arrangement crafted in Kampala. And when I say in Kampala, I'm looking at
in Entebbe.
I'm looking at Kampala Metropolitan, which includes Entebbe. Kampala Metropolitan includes Entebbe, because the president bringing in these belligerents from South Sudan,
the 2 protagonists,
and bringing former major protagonist, now peacemaker, in President Omar al-Bashir of Sudan,
who used to be a big nemesis to Mr. Museveni himself.
Yes, used to be a big nemesis to Mr. Museveni.
Until they somehow got reconciled by the ICC.
Fought a very bitter war with South Sudan, but allowed South Sudan to break off without the continuation of the war. And between the time of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement in 2005 to the South Sudan independence in 2011, you've had major wars, major fights. Even this recent agreement has I don't know, where do you see it going?
No. It's still a very shaky and uncertain state of affairs. You know, South Sudan has been such a big disappointment in the history of nation building and state formation. You know, the CPA in 2005 laid down a framework that was supposed to lead to the independence of the country in 2011, and that happened. And shortly after that, somehow, you know, things unraveled. And since then, it has, you know, things have not gotten to a state where you can be optimistic about the future of South Sudan, especially since the outbreak of the fighting in 2013 with Riek Machar running away. and then subsequently going back, and he's sworn in again as vice president, and then shortly he runs away, and he ends up in South Africa and under house arrest. Now President Museveni is trying to bring them back together. There have been so many efforts in Ethiopia on this matter, so many attempts at finding a negotiated settlement, but things haven't worked out, and things haven't worked out because you have here factional struggles for control of South Sudan. Riek Machar himself is a very ambitious man. He wants to be president of South Sudan, really. That is his ultimate objective. That's his ultimate goal. And then you have, all sorts of, militias under the command of different actors. Now, there has been a problem of centralizing the use of force and establishing a monopoly over the use of violence. In a modern state today, without you achieving that centralization of who can use violence and who cannot, it's impossible to have a stable country. And South Sudan is still in that mess of so many warring factions, so many militias, so many commanders and generals who are jostling for control over territory, but also, of course, the whole oil dynamic comes into play. So I don't see things going forward in the manner they are being done right now, because part of the problem with Museveni's mediation is that he has already previously been a partisan in this whole thing. Yes. He intervened to bolster Salva Kiir and keep him in power. So the Machar side actually don't trust him. They don't think that he's...
Must they trust him?
Well, but if you're going to be a mediator, both sides should have trust in you and confidence in you.
Isn't that the reason he brought in Bashir?
But Bashir is even worse, because Bashir is a foe as well to Salva Kiir.
So anybody watching South Sudan politics, Machar was bolstered when he first had a disagreement with Garang. He fled to Khartoum.
Correct, and
he's considered,
and was with Bashir.
Yes, he was with Bashir. So he's considered, in a way, to operate under the wing of Bashir.
Right.
If Salva Kiir operates under the wing of Museveni, and you have...
You think that balances out things?
You have Museveni on one side, you have Bashir on the other side, bringing together, Bashir brings Machar and puts him on and says, sign. Museveni brings Kiir and says, sign. And you have an agreement. You're in the business of peace building.
It's very, very disappointing to have a nation that whose founding father, Garang, people have already forgotten the fundamental values that set unprecedented achievement of having the rebirth of a new nation in the world. It has to be remembered that from 1956 up to 2005, the people of South Sudan had continuously fought for their liberation struggle, wanting to be recognized first under the constitution of North Sudan, but also the natural resources not impacting their people. Yes, but also the religious differences, the Sharia law in the north. That is a huge conversation, all of it. But as I might remind the viewers, that in 2005, in January 9th, in Naivasha, there was an agreement signed that in the statement of Colonel Garang, John, he said that the Muslims, the Catholics, the tribes that we have will not bring peace and unity in Sudan. What did he end with his communication? He said, Sudan will unite us. The fundamental thing here is that the founding father of this new nation was interested in the recognition of South Sudan within the bigger framework of Sudan. Now, going back just a few months, unfortunately, we lost that gentleman. It was unfortunate.
And he was a statesman. I think there has been a problem of the absence of statesman.
Exactly. Yeah. But many people have forgotten that fundamental.
And as you said, Garang actually was for United
Sudan. Exactly. Now, these two gentlemen, of course, I don't know if they go back and watch the videos of the principal foundation of what brought them together into the first liberation struggle, the second liberation. Now I hear SPLM and also SPLM
in opposition.
In opposition. You know that kind of, definitely there is some question to ask there. But our viewers need to know this information, that whereas Garang was looking for a united Sudan beyond tribes, beyond religions, like Sudan for everybody, but he also had an interest to become head of state. And Bashir, at the end, realized that he's tired of these wars. He said, can we go for an election, for a referendum? There was kind of preparations so that a general election might happen the 6 years ahead. Unfortunately, we lost the man. But then we see Kir, who was supposed to actually go and replace Bashir, Garang, in the general elections, refusing to go, but send a colleague who was a Muslim man by the names of Yassin to go for general elections in the north, by making sure he suffocates Machar not to stand, because he would find when Machar is the president of South Sudan. This history, in an analysis, you realize that until they have a common national vision shared, then we can go beyond the agreements.
The question
that is not in the agreement.
What will it take? You're locating this South Sudan discussion.
Yeah.
South Sudan is obviously important for Kampala.
Very important.
Because
Very important.
from the time of the CPA, and especially after the referendum, it opened up an untapped market.
Yeah.
It became
They have been our leading source of exports.
Yes. South Sudan is very important to Sudan.
Correct.
Or what would be the equivalent of North Sudan. Because
which is now called just Sudan.
Yeah, just called Sudan.
Sudan.
Because of the oil that exists there. But in which arrangement do you have an agreement that provides for 4 vice presidents? Things will work. And Emma Mutaizewa, who's the producer for this show, did an analysis for this station, which was run after that agreement. And he said, in modern day politics, it is unfathomable that a leader can make a return to the vice presidency for a 3rd time to be part of a government led by his adversary.
who he has been fighting.
But in the youngest nation, ripped apart by conflict, anything is possible.
Yeah.
The last time President Kiir and Riek Machar tried to have a government of national unity, it culminated in a shootout, leaving a coterie of bodyguards dead on the evening of July 8th, 2016.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can Bashir, Salva Kiir and Riek Machar actually get a functional government in Juba?
Yeah, you know, as an expert in this for now 11 years, globally, I believe these days peace building, of course, is beyond the agreement, the signing of papers. You see, those two. So we got to expand this conversation, our viewers, until these two gentlemen sit down to realize the fundamental foundation of the nation by having a shared vision, a shared principle system, and a shared development aspiration framework. Then they, because of those 3, then their role will be defined. But right now, the definition of what they are talking about is, I will have my own army. I will be in charge of these ministries. I will be the one to report to, you know, that kind of, it is not sustainable peace until we have shared values for peace.
What would it take to have those shared values?
It would take,
you're doing a conference in Munyonyo.
Yes.
At that same place,
yes, they are coming.
President Yoweri Museveni and leaders of the African Union met and inaugurated, I don't know if Dr. Kisa, you remember, inaugurated something they called the peace, what was it called? I forget.
The recent one is a revitalization agreement.
No. There is a space that was dedicated as a peace space, a space for peace. And it was South Sudan. And a major discussion there. Have you invited Machar and Kiir? Are they coming?
We have, he's coming, and Kiir is coming with a huge delegation also from the other side of Machar. And our kind of discussion here is rolling out new models beyond the paperwork now, signing, the two gentlemen.
What are those
signing.
models?
The new models for sustainable peace and development.
And what is that?
These are one. For example, we are discussing on those people who make things happen in terms of bringing peace. For example, interfaith leadership. We got to realize that every nation, every community, for example, has religious leaders. It got some cultural leaders. We got the youth. We got the women. We got the business people. So in this conversation, we are presenting a case in point that if our people come together, the people-to-people peace building, that our reconciliation can only happen when the two people come together and share a meal, for example. So the religious leaders, the cultural leaders, the women, the youth, the business people, because there is a component, business as a catalyst for peace. We lost already as a nation, as a neighbor, because we are getting some of our economy benefit from South Sudan. So, for example, KCB, which was a Kenyan bank, had already opened.
Which is a Kenyan bank.
Exactly.
A Kenyan
bank. Which actually opened its branch in Juba, closed down. But now in this perspective, we are saying, how can business entrepreneurs promote peace? How can women be in the families, the Muslim and Christian families, work together for a common good, to build their communities?
Beyond that being a very idealistic ambition, Dr. Kisa.
Yes, Charles.
South Sudan has exported over 1 million refugees.
Yeah.
Into
That
Uganda especially.
Huge
that
burden.
Group comprises your religious leaders, your men and women, your business community,
and peacemakers.
your youth,
Exactly.
your peacemakers. and I'm wondering where you are locating this kind of debate.
Yes.
Charlie,
yes.
Frankly, there is no easy fix for this kind of complex problem. In studies of the history of nation building and state formation, there has been a rather controversial idea, which people like Andrew Mwenda keep repeating, i.e. the idea that war is an instrument of building nations and making states, and that sometimes actually it is war that is going to resolve a problem, a long-standing conflict. It's going to be resolved through actual fighting, such that there is one group that emerges as victor of some sorts and can impose an order. You see, in South Sudan, what you have is so many factions fighting against each other, and there is no predominantly superior group that is organized enough to actually impose an order. Salva Kiir was being overthrown in 2013 if the Ugandan military had not intervened. So, in some ways, critics have pointed out that the Uganda's intervention in South Sudan may have actually exacerbated the problem rather than solved it, or at least postponed the problem. If the South Sudanese had been left to deal with matters internally, well, of course, there was a fear that genocide could have been committed, but presumably it would have also been possible that if Salva Kiir and the military he led was not fully in charge and competent enough, then they would be overthrown, and another group that is probably superior and better organized of Riek Machar maybe would impose a new order. So we don't know. What Milton is saying here, I don't know what models he's talking about, but the truth of the matter is that, peace building, peacemaking from above, and saying, I don't know, faith leaders and whatever. You see, we're going to talk these things here in Kampala, but the actual dynamics in the field in South Sudan are going to be a completely different matter, because there are groups there armed with weapons. You're not going to talk peace to them to lay down their weapons and walk home. Actually, South Sudan is a very, very militarized society. Very many young men earn a living by carrying the gun, by being in the military. I think it has like one of the biggest armies in the world, because it's kind of like the only way to survive, by being an army person, putting on a uniform and carrying a weapon.
And even with that, you don't even have a cohesive national army.
You see, that is the problem.
That's why the role of the UPDF became very important.
Right.
Jose Nwabin is watching us and says, the two political protagonists in South Sudan must remind themselves that their country's destiny lies in their hands. They must put aside their egocentric interests for the betterment of South Sudanese. Of course, Machar is more of a comprador agent of the Western powers, especially the United States, which is fighting with China over economic interests and whose eyes are on oil. They either unite or they will be swallowed together with Uganda, and Uganda will be a major shock absorber. Well, Jose, this sounds very good for, would sound very good for a communique after Milton's
Exactly.
Milton's conference. And Milton, someone is going to ask you and say,
But I don't know what.
Beyond, you don't know what.
I don't know. I was going to say
We'll
that
have
I don't know what it
Yeah.
means by Machar being an agent of Western interests, because Salva Kiir, who is actually sustained there by Museveni, and we know Museveni is like the leading agent of Western interests in this region. So I don't know. I think all of them are in one way or the other beholden to some Western interests. I don't know. I don't think that Salva Kiir himself is a very independent person who is not beholden to external interests.
You realize there is one component.
Just a moment. Let me take a message from Peter Wamboga Mugiria, who says, I am glad you observed that Uganda is a debating country. What kinds of debates, quality-wise, does Uganda engage in? Very lousy and NGO-ish debates of I think this or I think that, Muzungu-ish language, which is, I hope this is not racist or xenophobic, which is NGO-ish and has penetrated deep into our nation. There's no doubt we need the airliner for Uganda Airlines. It says, thanks Global Operator for positive spirit, hugely lacking in media and NGO world. Milton, I want to come back to you. Listening to you, you present this very fancy idea that you can sit in a conference, someone else can call it a workshop, in Munyonyo, and somehow from that meeting there, create peace. Not just in South Sudan, but in any country for that.
Around the world.
Yep.
Around the world. I don't know. You have a very fancy idea. And beyond the air-conditioned rooms of Munyonyo, I don't know how much impact you can have in South Sudan or any other part of the world.
Thank you.
Milton, let me just say one quick
Yes.
thing. You know, Charles, what you're saying reminds me. We used to have here something very ludicrous, run by a guy whose name I'm forgetting. He used to issue a peace flag to politicians, to presidential candidates. What's the name of the guy who was running?
You're talking about Musana. Musana still does.
Yeah.
He gave out one the other day. He gave out a peace flag the other
It's
day.
one of the most farcical things.
Let me be practical here. Those of you who think we are jokers, we are not jokers.
No. Nobody's saying that.
Nobody's calling you a joker, but
you see,
we're just questioning.
Yeah, let me give you a kind of an introduction to see how we are going to present the anatomy to peace. That A, B, C, D, if not in place, definitely you will not see a nation. In the 21st century, we do things after an assessment, after testing them. That's why these professors spend a lot of time testing. Then at the time you really bring it out into called an economic model, it has been tested somewhere. You can use ABs to localize that. The Global Peace Leadership Conference from 1st to 2nd August in Munyonyo.
You're making an announcement and we'll bill you for that.
It's not just a conference. No, it's beyond a conference. Why? Because we are bringing all cross-sector leaders to build consensus on response towards the issues in the region and around the globe. One of which, when we say countries are not stable because the family is not stable. So global experts are going to present models to stabilize the family institution, because when the family is not stable, definitely that's why you have corrupt leaders. That's why you have everybody radicalized. That's why even the media, people working in the media, in terms of promoting Africa, they are promoting certain things that damage the reputation of Africa.
I hear you. I hear you.
There are those
Mr.
fundamentals,
Mr. Kambala,
organizing.
I'm listening to you.
Yes. Now, education.
And I'm wondering between
yes.
a talking shop
yes.
and a preacher's message
yes.
on a pulpit,
yes.
where you would actually belong in between here.
Yes.
I see you lying either in both.
Yes.
And practically, South Sudan or the Democratic Republic of Congo
Or Somalia.
or Somalia
Or Burundi.
or Burundi
Yes.
or Kasese
Yes.
is not going to be resolved
It
by
is.
preaching, let's have morally upright families
Yes.
that bring up morally upright children. You said from 1956
Yeah.
to 2005,
Yeah.
with a small break in the 1970s,
Yeah. The middle.
in the middle.
And then the resumption
South-
in the early 80s.
Yes,
Yeah,
and the resumption
yeah.
in the 80s.
Yeah.
South Sudan was fighting.
Correct.
Generations were lost in that struggle. Generations ended up in exile.
Yeah.
They're just returning.
Yeah.
They return following the signing of the CPA in
Yeah.
2005. They are able to hold together for the anticipation of the referendum in 2011. No sooner have they, even before the ink dried on the
Had they
declaration,
become independent.
had they become independent, then they're shooting each other
Yeah.
in December 2013.
Correct.
Correct.
They haven't settled. They signed an agreement. They made that declaration in Entebbe.
Yeah,
No, in Entebbe.
Yeah.
The other day,
Yeah.
when it brought together these belligerents, Machar emerging from exile in South Africa, and then Bashir in Entebbe and Salva Kiir. Before they arrived back in Juba, they already
And Charles, don't forget
Yes.
that before Entebbe, there had been
Yeah.
accords in Addis Ababa,
Yeah,
Yes.
in Ethiopia.
in Ethiopia. They actually, shortly after the fighting broke out in 2013, in early 2014, there was a ceasefire that was agreed upon in, I think, February 2014. It didn't even last, several days.
Yeah,
the guys
but-
have gone
but
back
the
to
issue
fighting.
is-
So they have been at
you
peace.
see,
so
like,
this,
for
this,
example,
this anatomy.
Yes, the anatomy of peace works. Why? Because, for example, education. Our continent has inherited a colonial education since 1960 something. You remember that?
That we know.
Look at the population. Of course, we can see things at the top. But entering into the building, and of course, he's from the US. He knows what I'm talking about here. Entering into the real root cause of what is eating us, you realize education is one of it. Having 90% of the population not understanding the 21st century competencies, like peace building, like innovation, things that build a nation is in education. The conference you're talking about is launching a new robust education of the future, which is part of the conversation in Dubai recently.
Milton, with due respect,
Yes.
you are workshopping.
It's-
You're workshopping and talk shopping.
And actually, for your information, teachers are coming
watched-
from
I
every
watched-
part
I
of the
watched-
country.
I watched Muruli Mukasa make the announcement
Yes.
on Wednesday.
Yes.
And I said, okay, it's a good thing. You can bring into this country 1,000 delegates, and they spend some time here, possibly spend some money. If Uganda Tourism Board is still going on with what they were promoting, if you come to the workshop, spend a little more time, go around the country, spend some tourist dollars, that would give some comfort. We'll come and audit.
Yes.
You will come and audit
Yes.
your conference.
Yeah.
And when guns will not have stopped.
Charlie, I wanted to reiterate something I said earlier for Milton, if he can respond to. You have hundreds of military factions in South Sudan, right? You have several generals, each with their own militia, right? There is no national army. There is no integrated, cohesive, centralized national military.
Yes.
How is the peace education, how is this preaching of love and peace going to reach those factions in the field who believe that their own route to anything in life is actually to carry the weapons and to be a militia that is contending for supremacy, contending for control over others?
You know, the whole framework, as I've said, the power in a vision. Look at America, where you come from. There were those few gentlemen who sat down and said, you guys, they were different countries, definitely.
So there has to be statesmanship. I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, those generals still think the way they should do things is still in the shape of those. So the conference is actually bringing all those people and share the perspective of a vision that transcends their individualistic interests.
Could we?
That is guided by spiritual dimension. Because one thing in common is that whether you're a Muslim or a Christian, whatever tribe you are,
we are all citizens.
There are those interests that we cannot afford to actually lose.
Yedidia Nyakahangura is watching us from Ishak and says, the cause of war in South Sudan is egocentrism of a few individuals.
Exactly.
The only lasting solution to the war in South Sudan is
to round them up.
Is war itself. No. Listen to this.
Is war itself.
Is war itself. Let them fight until one side can't fight no more. Peace deals signed abroad are just papers that later become delicacies for termites. Can you respond to that?
You see, he's saying that empower the people to build their own. The peace must come from within.
Yeah, but you see, how do you empower people? Milton, I think what she's saying is actually historically accurate. Historically, conflicts have been resolved through fighting, through actual war making, right? Because you see, going into the war theater and emerging victorious means you have to be organizationally superior and overcome your adversaries, right? But you see, that used to be the past. Unfortunately, the world has changed so much that today, making the argument of giving war a chance is something that many people are not going to listen.
Because I think there's justification for that. The victims of war are not the protagonists or even their immediate family.
Correct.
You're sending other people's children to die in war. You're shooting and killing innocent people in that war. Where I buy into Milton's argument and say there must be a third way. There must be another way to do these things. Because you can't say, shoot until you can't shoot anymore. Who are you shooting? Who is dying?
And the idea of the youth, for example,
who are just integrating as many of these messages as possible. Rama Omonya has gotten back to us and says, the mistake the purported peacemakers make is to think there are only two protagonists in South Sudan.
There are many.
As we talk now, the group of 8 have been sidelined from active peace negotiations. Both Kir and Machar do not have control of their factions.
Correct.
South Sudan has the second largest number of generals in the world behind the United States.
And even the military itself, the size.
These are the real protagonists that needs to be brought to the table. The two are just a small part of the problem. I need you to chew over that before we can progress. Yedidi again says people in South Sudan have forgotten gotten so used to the war that being peaceful is being unsocial.
No.
Yedidi, I don't agree with you on that.
That is true.
Bernard Impero is watching us, I think, from Bernard Impero from Rubaga, I think. Everybody appreciates the initiative by the regional leaders, especially President Yoweri Museveni, as the lead mediator. But honestly, appointing 4 vice presidents because you want to accommodate the interests of all parties can cause a clash in the line of duties. I think you wanted to write clash in the line of duties, unless the line of duties are extremely defined, not to cause overlaps. The biggest worry is, can Machar convince all his following commanders? He may accept a peace deal and get a breakaway groups on his side, which will still be a problem. Joe Osia in Intinda says the biggest reason for the problems in South Sudan is the obscene financial rewards that the generals accessed by the military stalemate against Khartoum. The military powers are far ahead of the structures of state. This was a strategic misstep by the United Nations, the US and the other sponsors of the new state. Sustainable peace shall only be realized by subordinating the armies to civilian authority. It is a phenomenal civil challenge.
Correct.
I'll take a message from Henry Chombo. He's watching us and says, Milton should summon us peace and conflict students and experts, if you like, and we review those models before the conference. Otherwise, those models can't bring peace in a war situation of South Sudan. His models need more critical thinking and review, especially of that conference. So you have someone
Yeah,
who is
thank
interested
you.
in an invitation to attend your conference.
Yes.
I have Peter Wamboga came back and says, I'm glad you observed that Uganda... Okay, Peter had read that message. I have to go back over it. Joseph Nwabin again says, if I think that guy's workshop conference or whatever will provide solutions, if you think that guy's workshop or conference will provide solutions for the future generations, not an immediate solution. He could be among the few lucky people who profiteer from regional conflicts. Even when you read his body language inside him, you see someone who wants to, that will go on. Let's take a break. We'll continue this debate after a very short commercial break. Welcome back to this last segment of the Fourth Estate. I didn't make this announcement. I should have made it earlier. That Honor Peter Komoloit is not with us in studio.
The mainstay of this show.
Yes, he isn't feeling very well, and but I'm sure he's watching. I hope he's watching, and I wish you quick recovery. We also missed. I wasn't here last Sunday, so I'd like to thank Baldwin for sitting in. It was the night of the World Cup. I'd batted for Croatia, knowing it may not win, but I was very impressed that it was able to push up to the final, up to the final. But congratulations to...
And gave France a very, very serious game.
Yes, congratulations to France. I think they put up fantastic, they gave us a fantastic show, a fantastic tournament. And
it was beautiful.
Russia. We have some callers. Hello? Hello? Okay. The number is running on your TV screen. You can call us. When you call us, think through what you want to tell us so that you keep straight to the point. Ask a question or make a comment, and so that we can take as many as possible. Sure. Please remember to turn down the volume on your TV set so that we don't get an echo. That's why we haven't been picking a lot of calls. We have struggled doing the connection. But Charles, I agree with the guy saying war and chaos are huge business for those generals. They are wallowing in luxury and opulence with war around them. E.g., do you, for example, know that General Malong, former chief of staff, has 45 wives, each with a child in Kampala and other regional cities?
Oh my God.
Other regional cities. Milton,
Yeah.
there is a word or a phrase
Yeah.
used to refer to people who profiteer from conflict.
Yeah. The conflict in
Conflict entrepreneurs, they could be gun manufacturers, manufacturers of arms that make these wars.
Yeah.
They could be the
which has been the contribution of the West, by the way, in churning out weapons after weapons, and these are the weapons that
and they need market, and they find that market in this.
The military-industrial complex in the US is partly to blame.
Yes. Then you have you have peace merchants.
Yeah.
Who are the peacemakers like Milton?
who try to...
In fact, the conversation, like I work with an organization, an international organization called Global Peace Foundation. We are actually not in any of that. Because for us, we are actually promoting values-based approach to peace building, where we don't have any interest to do with an NGO in America saying, please, can you run this program for me with these objectives for the interest and objectives of the other man in the United States? No. For us, we are working with the communities, and we respond, we build capacity of local people to solve their own problems. But we don't come and impose money issue. We are not. We only work with schools, for example, building their capacity to deliver and be able to help students graduate with jobs, which is a good idea to national development. Look at the conversation North Korea and South Korea. We in the peninsula, for example, promoting the reunification of Korea, which is something that the globe is actually getting inspired about. So those entrepreneurs, definitely they're always there. selling some few things, small weapons. Of course, those are people who sustain conflicts. Even religious institutions around the world, some of them. So you talk about something, but they are not willing to even give the right blessing for healing. So that's why we are calling for interfaith peace building, so that these people, religious institutions, can stop bickering, saying, hey, we are in competition, but working together to promote interfaith values, like kindness,
let me ask
forgiveness.
A question to the both of you.
Yeah.
The conflict in the Middle East between Israel and the Arab neighbors,
yes,
but particularly the Palestinians, 1948, not abating to date.
Yeah.
And people have been talking peace building, peace building, peace building. The Korean conflict,
Yeah.
as you just talked about.
Yeah.
You, from our earlier discussion before you came on air, you seem to believe that it can be negotiated
Yeah.
when it has gone nuclear.
Yeah.
The conflict in the Kashmir region
Yeah.
between India and Pakistan, the conflict here across the border
Yeah.
in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Don't forget Colombia.
Yeah.
Colombia.
It had the longest
Yes.
civil war since the
Yeah.
1960s.
The conflict in South Sudan, the conflict in Somalia. The conflict in Somalia is the attempts to bring sanity to that country is because the UPDF decided to go in 2007.
Yeah.
So I am just wondering about the location of the peace message. It's a good message,
Yeah.
but the location in the intricate...
It's a good intention.
Yes.
It's a good idea.
It's practicability. Let me start with you, Dr. Kisa, and then we'll come to Milton.
Well, see, Charles, I'm a student of politics, and I look at these things in their empirical, historical reality. And what you're saying is precisely the point. There are very few cases you are going to talk about that represent the peace efforts that Milton is talking about. Northern Ireland, perhaps, after a long time of fighting, there was some kind of negotiated settlement, and the fighting somehow ended. But most conflicts that have ended in the past have ended when actually war has come to its logical conclusion. Talking about Angola, which had a long-standing civil war, the Angolan civil war and the Angolan conflict was only ended after UNITA was decisively defeated, and Jonas Savimbi, of course, was killed on the battlefront. So, I mean, I wish Milton all the best and all the peacemakers and the peace advocates. But for me, from a scholarly point of view, looking at things historically, my optimism on that front is very limited.
And you realize in the 21st century, for example, the way we fight now, the shape of conflict has changed. You realize now young people are no longer looking at tribalism, because the type of war they are on right now is digital, business, innovations. So the conversation, the old shape of conflict is continuously changing. Remember the way President Museveni came to power, and the other regimes past 1970s. It was hard way. AK-47, AK. Now the type of conflict is changing. Apart from a few punches like South Sudan, which actually have to transcend beyond, as I've said, a value-based system where these generals need to be educated, to be oriented, that in the 21st century, we got to put guns down.
Fighting is a bad idea. But Milton, when you look at the real flashpoint,
yes,
the real serious cases we are talking about,
yes,
actually the AK-47 remains the key issue.
That's why I'm saying in the 21st century, we don't need...
Milton, listening to you and preparing for the show before you came, when I was meant to understand you'd be coming to the show, understand one of the things you have attempted to do under your Global Peace Foundation is study and analyze the conflict in Kasese.
Yes.
For example.
Yes.
The conflict in Kasese was about the AK-47 and there's been no resolution, there's been no discussion about that. If we wanted to come domestic, I haven't had a major initiative that says, wait a minute, this is where the conflict started, this is why it grew, and this is what needed to resolve it.
Yes. When, for example, you attend the conference, you will hear the analysis of the Rwenzori conflict and how actually before, just like 3 months before those issues happened, we had already gotten the indicators and we were there. But the controls...
You arrived too late to the party.
Exactly.
If your analysis was 3 months indicators before the actual explosion of that conflict, you arrived too late.
But you realize the way we are working closely with the local people in Rwenzori region, you realize the structures are actually healing themselves. Community is visiting another community, donating to the other community. There is a lot of youth who are using sports for peace. There is a lot of music for peace. Recently, we had to share with the government on nuts, the seeds. We are now bringing the partnership of the seeds to now for the community to use them to heal the other community. The other, if I have a problem with you, you plant in my garden an apple tree, and a sign of saying, yes, I have forgiven you, then I come and also plant a tree in your garden. So there is a lot of models going into Rwenzori. And now that the GDP contribution of Rwenzori into our national GDP is higher, we need to build peace and stability in those communities. But it won't come from only the academicians. The local people must actually shape the future of their communities. That's what we are doing.
Actually, Milton, you know, if you're going to attain lasting peace, the number of prerequisites that has to be worked out. One of them, of course, is social justice, restitutive justice. Communities have to feel that there is a system that treats everybody justly.
Just, exactly.
Without justice, you can never have any long-term peace in place. But you also need statesmanship. Many of these warring countries on the African continent, you look at them and you cannot find a Nyerere, you cannot find a Mandela, you cannot find an Nkrumah there. All you have are warlords.
Warlords,
and, you know,
that's
and
very bad.
And merchants. The other thing is that not until there is a centralization of the use of coercion, not until, you know, factions, military factions can be whipped into line and you have a more integrated national military.
Yeah.
Forget about
and that's why you have a peace declaration. It's called the Kampala Peace Declaration, which is going to actually be signed, stopping the use of weapons in actually tackling social. Some of these issues, we don't need guns.
How is the embargo by the United Nations against South Sudan going before you sign your declaration?
Definitely, you said it here, all of you, that this conflict need be actually the dramas. It is beyond the two gentlemen. So that's why the commitment is beyond the two gentlemen, including everyone who influences the stability of the region is going to sign, including investors, including statesmen.
Gentlemen, our time is pretty much out. We need to get out of here. Musa Ismail Ladu is watching us and says, any prescription for South Sudan should be for the future. At the moment, what South Sudan needs is a compromise deal, which should phase out the generals. Most of them are in the evening of their careers. Thank you, Ismail.
Yeah.
We need to get out of here. Our time is pretty much out, and I would like to thank you, gentlemen, very much for making time for the show. Thank you very much, Dr. Kisa. We always appreciate that when you drop into Kampala, you're able to spare time and be with us and share with our viewers. Yeah. Thank you very much, Milton.
Thank you very much
for making time for the show, and wish you the best of luck.
Oh, thank you. Please,
you're welcome. Your conference, we'll be watching and auditing.
Come and we'll launch new models for peace.
We'll be watching and auditing, and I'm sure we'll ask about that peace center that was launched a few years ago.
Oh, yes, please.
Thank you very much to you, all our viewers. East Africa is receiving very high power visitors. He says he's bringing at least five presidents to Munyonyo. We'll be watching. But the president of Xi Jinping
is coming to Kigali.
Yes, he's actually arrived in Kigali. He's arrived in Kigali. He'll be in Kigali for a couple of days. Right. And Prime Minister
of India,
Narendra Modi,
is coming to
Kampala. He's spending 1 hour in Kigali. He arrives in Kigali first and then comes to Kampala, where he'll spend a night and then travel to South Africa. Yeah. Maybe we need to explore a little bit more what those leaders are bringing, what their contribution is to both conflict and peace, especially in the conflict, in the fight for resources, for in these countries and opportunities
Yeah.
as well. Maybe we need to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah.
As part of
you can
Peace
say
Initiative.
you can say quickly, Charlie, that both Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi are coming to East Africa really looking for resources to extract.
I wouldn't mind that. It's about these East African countries and Uganda in particular to see what can you get out of a Narendra Modi visit, especially for a country that has had such a long history with India and people of Indian origin that have made a difference in this country.
We have Indian Ugandans here.
Yes, they're organizing a huge fete.
I've seen the billboards.
And of course, for you, our viewers, I think we'll be watching very closely on what comes out of Mbale on Thursday.
Yes,
the ruling
the
on
Constitutional Court ruling.
The Constitutional Court ruling on the age limit. It's what has been called the Constitutional Amendment.
Of our Constitution.
The Constitutional Amendment Act. The ruling is finally coming this week. We'll be watching and we'll keep you up to speed. And hopefully we'll have a discussion about it when it finally happens between Thursday and Sunday. We'll see what developments will be coming out of that. So if we displace the Uganda Airlines debate, a comprehensive debate, it might be the ruling that might displace it, but we'll be watching very closely.
But the issue of the visiting heads of state, it's very important. They are not just coming. In my view, it benefits our country. President Modi, His Excellency, the Prime Minister of India and the President of China coming means a lot to Uganda. And I thank His Excellency, the President of Uganda, Kagame, Uhuru Kenyatta, who is also coming here. This is a great opportunity because of the integration and the economic benefit that we have and our alliances with the Asian tigers is very important to actually expand our industrialization agenda and Vision 2040 as a country.
Thank you very much.
Expanding our diplomatic relations, economic diplomatic relations.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much to you all our viewers for joining us tonight and always, and thank you very much to the production crew that stay up late to deliver this show to you. From me, it's a good night and have an enjoyable week.
Well, thank you.